Welcome to this video about the interview stage of the Oxford application process. Here we'll be talking about why we have interviews and what we're looking for. I'm Lizzie, I'm one of the Access and Outreach Officers here at St Edmund Hall, which is one of the colleges of the University of Oxford. So why do we have interviews? Well, in short, they give us further detail about the way you approach and work through academic problems. It also helps us to understand whether the small group tutorial teaching that we have here will suit you and your thinking style. So what is that thinking style? Well, to explain it, we've got some comments from interviewing tutors about what they are looking for. Firstly, in the words of one of our Italian tutors, there really is no Oxford type. A promising applicant is one who is flexible, responsive and thoughtful in their approach, whichever educational system or background they come from. Interviews at Oxford are designed to be like a practice tutorial to see how well that style of teaching and learning will suit you. That means that the bulk of an interview will be academic in focus. The interview might begin with some questions about your personal statement or any submitted work you've given us, but the core of the interview, which is the bit the tutors are really looking at, will be based around a particular problem or stimulus relevant to your subject. That's likely to be something new, some sort of unseen content, or to be based on a universal principle that everyone applying for that subject will be familiar with. The academic problem or stimulus that you'll be presented with could come in one of several forms. It could be a graph, a map, a poem or a piece of prose, an equation, or a particular object. It will be relevant to your subject, so if you're applying for English, you don't need to worry about equations. If you need to know any particular information, if you need to have any knowledge to approach that stimulus, that will be given to you by the tutors during the interview. Those tutors will also be there to respond to your ideas, to give you guidance and to help you through to keep you on the right track. As we've discussed, the main part of the interview will likely be an academic discussion, though it may still start off with some more general questions. To get yourself off to the strongest start and feeling really confident, you might like to think in advance about why you've chosen your subject and how you'd explain anything that you've discussed in your personal statement or any submitted work. Don't forget that those initial questions are more likely to be there to ease you in rather than assess your academic ability. So it's not the end of the world if your answers don't come out quite as well as you might have wanted them to. When it comes to the academic content of the interview, it's unlikely to be something that you can explicitly revise for. So instead, you might find it helpful to practice talking aloud about your subject and talking through your thinking process. Mock interviews won't be able to precisely mimic an Oxford interview, but it might help you feel more familiar with the scenario and thus at ease in your actual interview and able to perform at your best. Interview questions are often designed specifically to be new to you, so not knowing the answer at first glance is perfectly usual, if not to be expected. That's because the interview is about getting that understanding of how you think, not what you already know. When presented with a question or problem, you'll probably need to break it down and it should then be approachable. In the words of one of our medical tutors, for the most part, interviews are about seeing how well you can think something through, not how much you already know. So don't hesitate to ask for clarification if you're unfamiliar with a particular technical term or if a question you've been asked seems unclear or ambiguous. So, if you don't understand any questions you're asked, or if you don't know the answer on your first go, that's absolutely fine. The key is to break it down and then work through it methodically. Don't forget to think aloud so that the tutors can get that insight into your thought process that they're looking for, and so that they can help you. They want you to do well and show off your abilities as best as you can, so they'll give you guidance and help you work through the question together. Realising that you've made a mistake can be nerve-wracking, but it's absolutely normal. I didn't meet anyone who didn't think that they'd made at least one mistake during their interviews, but it's all about the recovery. In the words of one of our medicine tutors, very good candidates spot their own mistakes and they recover from them. So, if you think you've got something wrong, take a moment and then try again. If you think you've made a mistake because of new information that the tutors introduce, don't panic. Have another go, bearing that new information in mind. Doing that shows that flexibility of thought that's a really desirable trait. Interviews are the last part of the Oxford application process, and for that reason, and because of the unfamiliar scenario, a lot of people find them really nerve-wracking. To be nervous about them is totally normal. If I'm honest, I was totally bricking it before my first interview, but it still went pretty well. Remember that the tutors want to see you at your best. They're going to be supporting you and encouraging you throughout. They're not going to ask you any trick questions or try and trip you up. It's much more of a conversation about your subject. You might even enjoy it. Here we've been focused on the content of Oxford interviews, but we'll be covering the practicalities of this stage of the application process in a future video. We hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful. It was made by the Access and Outreach Officers at St Edmund Hall, which is one of the colleges of the University of Oxford. If you'd like to find out more about us and how you can apply, please visit seh.ac/apply.